Mauri ora e te whare, mihi ana kia tātou, kua hui mai nei I tēnei ata. Mo te kaupapa e here nei I a tātou, arā ko te awa o Waiāri. Muri tō tātou huihuinga I tēnei ata, ko huri te rākau kōrero kia koe te pāpa dīna e whakatūwhera tō tātou nei hui.
Kia rā tātou. Nuhi katapau whakaura hana ki te tonga. E mana he rangi te tahu I ko keri ki te matame ki ora. Ki mihi ia. Ano haramai te toki hau e hui e.
Tāki e. Kia ora. Atamari e. Tuatahi ake e tautoko ana ngā mihi kua whāriki kia I tēnei ata. Kia koutou e te hau kāinga. Te reo o te kāinga e pōhiri nei e whakatau nei I a tātou. Nei rā te mihi. Ko mahana te tinana, no roto I te poho o tēnei o ngā whare. Kua ki te ngākau, kua ki te puku I te aroha a hoki. Nō reira, kia koutou mā, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Ko hikurangi te maunga, ko waipu te awa, ko horauta te waka. Uri tēnei no Ngāti Parautau ta ngā hauiti. Ko hautapu beika tōku ingoa. Nōku te Waimarie ki te noho ki te taho o tēnei puti. No tēnei rohenga, Darlene, hei co-chairs mo tēnei kāhui o tātou. Ko tēnei tōku tūnga tuatahi, so go easy on me please. Sorry, I was just saying good morning. My name is Hautapu, for those of you that may not know. I'm originally from the East Coast. I grew up in Tauranga, and it is my honour to sit alongside Darlene committee. This is also my first time chairing a committee, so please go easy on me while I figure this thing out. But today is going to be really relaxed and comfortable. Our haukainga really set the wairua or the feel of our day. Everyone's warm, everyone's well fed, so we're in for a really efficient, well run, hopefully, and good productive hui and kōrero. So, in terms of health and safety, we've just had an amazing karakia, so I think we're covered on many fronts. But in case there is one, we'll just make sure that our kaumātua, our kuia, are taken care of as we exit the whare, should we need to. Whare paku, just at the back for those that are here. And I believe we may have a paku kai after as well. So if you... Not paku, I've just been told awesome. So please don't run away, stick around for a good kai and feel the entirety of the hospitality of our haukainga. So, members, please speak clearly. We do have a lot of people in our whare. And also, everyone in the room, please put your phones on silent. If your phone goes off in the meeting, I will make you stand up and sing a song. Apparently I have, according to the terms and conditions of the role, we can do that. So I will also be selecting your song. Yeah, I can see you putting your phones on silent. Ka pai. We've had our opening karakia, so mi ana kia koe te papa. We're going to head into it. So apologies. We have one apology from Councillor Morris. Any other apologies? And Councillor Rolliston, Hemi Rolliston. And Manu Penny as well. So I call for a mover and a seconder to accept those apologies. Tēnā koe whaia, tēnā koe mea. All those in favour? Aye. Kia ora rā. Moving on. Public forum, we don't have anybody here, but considering we do have a really good presence from mana whenua, I'm pretty comfortable with opening up this space for a short while, should anyone wish to get up and have a kōrero, followed by a majestic waiata. Carl, ka pai. Or should you wish to at any point, please just let us know and we'll see what we can do to accommodate that. Tēnā koutou. Acceptance of late items, there are none. There is no confidential business to be brought into the open. No change in the order of business. So confirmation of minutes. I just call for a mover. So confirmation of minutes for the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group meeting held on the 12th of March 2025. Are there any corrections to these minutes? Carl? Ka pai. So the recommendation that the minutes of the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group meeting held on the 12th of March to be confirmed as true and correct record. Mover and a seconder? Aye. Kia ora koe whaia. Is anyone else here? Kia ora whaia, Helen. All those in favour? Kia ora rā, that motion is carried. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Carl. Ka pai. First order of business, 9.1, Waiāri Operational Report, 11th of June 2025. I welcome staff Peter Bars and Wally Potts, or is it just Peter?
Just Peter.
To our super awesome presentation table over here.
Morena.
Morena.
I haven't prepared a presentation for this because it's pretty straightforward. I suggested just take the paper as read, but happy to answer any questions associated with it.
Sure. Happy to take that as read. Any questions of staff?
Yeah, it may be a little premature, Peter, but in regard to water flows, and it shows here the tailing off, perhaps a little bit of water flow during last year. Given that we've just had half a year's rain in less than 10 weeks, and I know you do refer to April back there, but in the report, but is there an indication that it's sustaining higher flows or not?
In fact, since April, the flows have declined further, even with the rain that we've had. So the key thing about the rain is it needs to get into the aquifers to really make a difference. So and the duration of time between it getting into the aquifers and actually having a flow impact is not fully understood either. So I think it's really a case of monitoring and making sure that we understand the flow profile. If you look historically, it's had its ups and downs, but it's been pretty steady. Probably the biggest challenge was when we went through those three particularly dry years between 2019 and 2022, and that's where we saw the stream decline in flow quite dramatically. That was followed by a bumper year of rain, and that's where we saw, if you have a look at the trends where the flows went up extensively. So it was about December 2022-23 that we had the high peak. We had that unusual rain event in January 23. That was 3 times the highest flow that we've seen in the stream. So, we haven't really got a good handle on what the flows are going to do. Since then, you can see the flows have declined quite significantly, and I think it's really just keeping a monitoring watch on it and trying to understand what the long-term effects are.
Okay, thank you.
Peter.
I'm not certain.
Can I raise a point here? I don't think we realise how significant the Waiāri is. There needs to be a lot more research done in terms of social, cultural, environmental impacts, because if you look after that, the economics will follow. To give you some idea on that, the port of Tauranga is like Rome. It's the gateway to the world. The Tauranga City Council relies on the Waiāri River supplied with water. And Eastern Arterial is the road to Rome. In other words, all your industries like timber and all that comes from the central North Island. And the Waiāri plays a very key part in terms of supplying water to Tauranga City Council. So the question I'm asking is to look back further in terms of social, cultural, environmental. You have the aquafilters and about 140 streams that comes from Waitāne Wainuku that leads into the Waiāri, into the Kaituna, into the Waiāri. Are they protected? Because global warming has arrived, and we have to look at those things now. The first aid kit now, and not leave it for the ambulance, otherwise we'll end up with the ambulance. So I'm saying it needs to be, a study needs to be wider than just what's happening, currently what's happening. There needs to be a longer vision. Because if we don't deal with global warming now, we're going to be having inflated costs in 5 or 6 years' time. Hope they didn't give anybody brain damage.
Kia ora, point taken.
Helen?
Yes. Peter, I noticed in here that you have reported on the water flows. What about the water quality? The reason why I ask is we used to get weekly, I think they were weekly reports on the quality of water. And so I noticed that after a rain event, any sort of rain event, there would be the E. coli and things like that would peak at those times. Do you monitor the quality of the water?
Yes, we do. We do monthly checks on water quality, twice monthly on the bacterial content. Obviously, when we do have rain events, the bacterial counts do go up. We can get those back to you. We've been submitting those through to Kipper Morgan and Ollie McMillan in terms of the Māori model, but we can certainly copy you in on
Yes,
those.
please. That would be good.
If anyone else needs them, just let me know.
Yeah, just a quick question. Do we have any updates on the HFA tank? There's a bit of damage done to it a while back.
Correct. It's been reinstalled. As soon as we've got it up and running, we'll put out a media release. But that should be happening this coming week.
Through the chair, the tank, like Peter said, has been installed. It's been recertified by our hazardous substances certifier. That takes quite a bit of time to go through all the checks and balances with them. It's going through its final commissioning now. The engineer on site just finishing up one last analyzer, and then we should be ready for taking delivery. And then, like Peter said, we'll do a press release prior to that going live.
Cool. And so all going well, what's the time frame on that being fully operational?
Without being held to it, because
Yeah.
there's things that can go wrong, and Murphy lives, but we're aiming for next week.
Next week? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any further questions? Kia ora whai.
Yes, I apologise if I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but I just wondered, I had two burning questions and I'm not sure if you can answer them, and I'll apologise now because it's kind of basically I'm new at this too and I'm not sure of the rules, but I have a question around the local waters done well and what impact that will have on the Waiāri CAG. And I also have a question around the proposed regulatory standards bill and what impact that will have on the Waiāri CAG.
Do you want to answer the local water done well? I can answer it as best as I can. As far as, from my point of view, the Waiāri CAG is under the consent, so it's a consent requirement. Therefore, it'll have to continue irrespective of the arrangements that are in place. So, yeah, it'll need to continue. The way in which it gets managed will need to have some discussion, I should imagine. Regarding the other legislation, I'm not sure how that would impact. Standards
Get an
will.
answer, right? It's a good question. We'll get a full response for both those questions.
I'm actually looking to ask if the Waiāri CAG would have a discussion around the regulatory standards bill with a view to doing a submission. Hopefully opposing. But yeah, kia ora.
Any recommendation? Deputy Mayor John?
Yeah, I was just looking at the abstraction rate there, sort of around 2 or 3% of flows during April. I was just wondering if you could remind us what the maximum allowable take is?
So the maximum allowable take is 690 litres a second, and our maximum that we've been taking is, as indicated, about 180.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Just one last comment. Just the biomonitoring report, as indicated in the report. We received the draft report quite late in the piece, so I just wanted to make sure that to finalise it. But once that's been finalised, I'll send it out to all the membership, and then we can present it at the next CAG meeting.
Any further questions for staff? Carl? Thank you. Kapai, so we've had a potential recommendation put forward that the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group provide a submission to the Regulatory Standards Bill in opposition to the bill. We can open that up for discussion before we bring it into the motion. There's a form to be formally recognised, is that correct? Is that how we would do it?
We can put it, but it's just better off as an action in the minutes rather than a formal recommendation, because you'd be recommending it to yourselves.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just to clarify, I wasn't clear whether Helen was talking about a submission on a personal capacity or from this group.
On behalf of.
On behalf of the group.
Right.
Because it seemed that it was unclear what impact, if any, the regulatory standards bill would have on this group. And so if there is no impact, then I'm not sure we need to make a submission on that. But if it does, then by all means, I think we can and should make a submission. But it's not clear if there is any impact at this point, because it does. My understanding is it relates to legislation rather than how a group like this operates. But happy to be informed by staff.
Is that probably right?
There's an opportunity here, a big opportunity, political opportunity here. If we look at the regional council that owns support, or 56% or chairs, so it should be a major contributor. And we have a look at the treaty settlements, the Marua Kaituna and those are also instruments that could have an influence on the political level. And we could also have a look at the environmental issues, riparian growing and all that, how I put it, feed the blood veins that leads into the Waiāri. Blood veins means all the creeks and streams that probably come down the Waiāri. To have a look at a wider picture and to get political influence, collaboration. So the support from the Department of Conservation, the Regional Council, because it owns 2/3 of the board chairs, and each council, because they rely on it rather than one council dealing with it. You have a collaboration of a lot, and we've got all these instruments that are able to, if you like, overcome any new acts of decree that comes through Parliament. It's a political pitch, but you can use the instruments you've got at the same time, if you get what I mean.
Right. So I'm hearing two actions. One, we'll get direction from staff on whether there is a direct impact on the Waiāri around the regulations bill, and if so, that we will put a collective submission in opposition to the bill as action points. Are we comfortable with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think in support of Helen, it's my opinion that we do write a submission in opposition to that, whether we do it as iwi or we do it as this group. You may be conflicted as councillors, is the problem.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we're just going over. So we thought that
really
maybe you guys
need a
could
discussion.
do it as iwi members of.
Oh no,
Waiāri.
here we are. We
Yeah, it can
are
be a
doing
Yeah.
our own submission, but I'm looking at a submission from the
Waiāri.
Waiāri CAG.
Could we, that's what I was just asking, if we could do
Like
it by
Te Maru or
membership
Kaitana, I
rather
would
than,
expect
because the
expect
councils
Te
might.
Maru or
Kaitana.
Kaitana to do their own submission as well. The only reason why I want to bring this up is, you know, from a Māori perspective, the successive governments have all said no one owns the water. That's actually political. It's not a legal certainty. If you look at the ruling of the Waitangi Tribunal, they recognise that Māori have proprietary rights. In water, the New Zealand Council has also talked about there being rights, but those rights have not been explored. And so when you look at something like the Regulatory Standards Bill, we all had treaty settlements based on that bill, that the little gains that we got from our treaty settlements mean nothing. Because you have a legislation that cuts right across that. Looking at, so that's the implications for iwi. The implications to council would mean, for example, we can have a multinational company that can come and set up shop on the Waiāri and start extracting water. Now, council may not like it, but council, there's potential in there for that multinational company to sue iwi because it's about profits, it's about economics, and sue council as well. And so the implications of this bill are far-reaching, and I think from a council perspective, I would think that you would want to know what implications here are. I know from an iwi perspective, we're quite upset about this bill. It's far-reaching.
Yes.
I'm quite happy that we, if you ask staff to investigate any potential negative effects on either the Waiāri or the operation of this group, then I'm happy that we submit according to what those things are. But I'd like to understand that before the submission goes in. I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so we'll just double back to the two initial recommendations. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to support basically what James has said, that make the inquiry first. But I also have to say, I don't entirely agree with what Helen said in terms of when she said an international company could set up on the Waiāri and start extracting water, because given my earlier question, council's allowed to extract about 15% of the long run flow, and I'm not sure as regional council staff here, they may be able to answer for us in terms of what proportion of the water is allowed to be extracted. So I wouldn't have thought there was opportunity for many other people to be gaining opportunity to gain consent to extract further water from the stream.
Yeah, all points noted and respected, and I think there's a lot of good questions there that need to be answered. Yeah, so we'll double back as per the initial action points. Did you have something to say, Fire? Yeah, go for it.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I support Helen's notion to write the submission based on the fact that we don't know what these CCO discussions look like. We don't know what the regional plan is for the multi-CCO. And we haven't had any discussions about it either. I support Helen in the fact that Helen's looking at the longevity of the awa. Given that we know, and Regional Council's not here to... Are you? Okay. Are you able to advise whether the Waiāri is over-allocated in the minute?
I don't have that knowledge. I can find out and
Okay. Because the part two of this is that we are all aware that water takes are due for reconsenting next year. Therefore, as iwi, we would ideally like to look at those and have discussions whether we support those reconsentings of those water takes. So given that, and I'm happy to put my name to the submission because you would be conflicted, on behalf of the Waiāri, as long as we have the support. Also happy to work with staff and iwi on that. Concerned about who I might be looking at. Is that you, Rachel? And I don't know who we'd be working with in TCC. Calvin? Oh, you're only there till the first. Jen. Who would that be? Someone from policy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put Jeremy Bose's name down.
Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy will sort out.
Okay. Did you hear that, Anna?
Yeah. So we're just working through some of the technicalities on our end as councils, not as individuals on the Waiāri. advisory group. So I'm hearing the sentiment shared by my fellow councillors that we're in support of submissions from iwi that are, as members of the Waiāri against the Regulatory Standards Bill. But we do need to seek confirmation on where, excuse me, on how far councils can go with either supporting or opposing as an entity of being a council. And we can't provide certainty that we will get that feedback and recommendations in on time to be able to make an informal decision to support or not support. But we do absolutely support our iwi who sit on the Waiāri Advisory Group to make those submissions. So we've got those noted as actions, and then if the stars align and we can get that information in time, then we can put one in as well. So it can be an and, not an and/or. But you've got support around the table. We support iwi making a submission, and then we'll come back to whether or not we can support that as councils via the Waiāri. So are we comfortable with that? Kapai?
Did you understand that? Yep.
All right.
Do we have time for it?
Well, with the submissions close in 12 days.
Exactly.
Our council right now is coming through to the end of our annual plan deliberation stuff, and I'm not too sure where Western Bay's at, but ideally, we'll push for that, but can't provide certainty on when we'll get that.
Okay. I would just, if we had somebody with a legal lens on it, if you have a look at the treaty settlements, they're acts of decree. They can't be just thrown out the door. You have a look at certain sections of the RMA, they can't be thrown out the door. If you line up all those legal and collaborate together, so you'll have a collaboration between the regional council, your local government acts, and iwi settlements coming together, you've got a powerful weapon to overcome what I call bumblebees in the beehive, who, or the most appropriate word is a wasp nest. But anyway, from a political lobby, you can overturn that by beating them over the head with their own stick, with your own legal instruments. And you want some lawyer to flush all that out, and it's about collaboration, collaborating together. You may even need the Department of Conservation in there, and some of their legal, what's called to protect the riparians and all that sort of stuff. And it'll protect inflation. It won't inflate, because you got them all acting one together in response to global warming. Because global warming is here, and you don't sit around and wait for it. You attack it now, collectively.
Kia ora. So I just had Ange at the back, and then Mia Tenya. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Andrew Starhigh. In the spirit of collaboration, I attended BP Regional Council Committee Māori Hui yesterday, and the resolution in that hui was that Regional Council have joined 16 other regional territorial authorities to do a combined submission on the Regulatory Standards Bill, but they resolved yesterday to also do their own submission. So Regional Council staff have now been asked to work in haste to put together a submission from the Regional Council's perspective, and that may be an opportunity for collaboration in terms of your, what you've put forward, or a way to achieve the timeliness. Yeah,
other councils are doing it.
Yeah. Other councils are doing it, and definitely Regional Council Committee Māori resolved yesterday. That was their last decision made, that they will, their staff have now been instructed to pull together a submission on that. And it may be that we could, TCC, support understanding what that process looks like and whether we can join up in terms of a proposed submission.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a quick chat to Rachel, so she may want to come in on this, but she's offered that we can have a whole of wānanga for members of the committee to understand what the implications are of the regulatory standards. But I guess particularly in relation to what our kaupapa is here, obviously it's a much bigger issue for Māoridom, but in terms of what we do here, I think that would be helpful in letting us all understand what the implications are, if any, because there's lots of assertions flying around, but we don't necessarily know what the full implications are.
So we can get that done soon because we've got a 12-day window effectively.
Yes, through you, Mr Chair. Ko Rachel Davey Tōkuinua. I'm the General Manager of Strategy and Community at Western Bay of Plenty District Council, and broadly I just to tautoko what Ange has said, and time is of the essence. So my suggestion would be to, if the advisory group was keen for this, to have a wānanga opportunity, so we're not constrained by standing orders. And if that was our kanohi, we'll take your lead. It could be on Zoom, given that we've got 12 days. And we could make contact with our peers at both city and the regional council just to see who might be available to give some context to what the regulatory standards bill is broadly saying, and then what it might mean for the kaupapa of this rōpū. We could also take that opportunity, I'm sure, just to, because there is some interconnectedness just from the kōrero around local would done well, and bring you up to speed on where, certainly where Tauranga City and Western Bay is at in the, no decisions have been made yet in relation to what happens next. And because certainly it is Western Bay's intention, and I know that the city are progressing this particular kaupapa too, is to kōrero with tangata whenua right across our respective rohe about next steps for involvement in the local water process. So we could at least use that opportunity too to talk about where our respective councils are at in that aligned process.
Goodbye.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. And that's awesome. So yeah, ma te wānanga, ka mōhio, ma te mōhio ka mau, na te mau ka mahi. So we'll get that wānanga underway ASAP, get that knowingness, and then we'll take action from there ASAP as a collective, but definitely again support iwi who are a part of the Waiāri to make submissions as well. So very much an and. Ka pai, if there's no further discussion, going once, twice sold. Recommendation that the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group receives the report, Waiāri Operations Report, 11th of June 2025, and B, provides feedback or comment on the report as needed. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Ka pai, tēnā kōrua, Mayor James and Whai Helen. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Kyle. Motion carried. Tēnā tātou, great kōrero. Item 9.2, project update, Waiāri rest area restoration. I'd now like to invite Jason Crummer and Chris Napier to the tepu.
Morena, ko Jason Crummer tōku ingoa, for those who don't know me. I'm the Senior Recreation Planner with the Western Bay Plenty District Council. And yeah, it's been my great pleasure being part of this project with the Waiāri Rest Area Restoration Project. So this is really just a general update. I know that the update is in the agenda. I don't like just saying take the report as read. I like to talk through the different points. So since the last update, there's been what I would like to say a lot of progress made. Thankfully, a lot of progress made because I had to sit in the hot seat and answer some pretty hefty questions, which is good. It comes with the territory of being responsible for this project. But since then, we have installed a rope handrail, so that is a temporary or removable relocatable handrail, and that's on page 25 of the agenda. I've been told you might be able to moor the Titanic to that thing. It is pretty hefty, pretty deep, but it is fully relocatable, and we can just backfill.
You know that sunk, eh?
I know, yeah. Maybe we'll sink the other Titanic. We've also managed to secure $300,000 of funding towards this project, courtesy of the Te Puke Community Board through their roading fund, and that's a tremendous win for this project. The only condition is that the pedestrian bridge remains a priority, which it will remain a priority for this work. It has to be. It's essential. So they said as long as it remains a priority, we can secure up to $300,000 of funding to go towards the project, which brings the total budget to $1,300,070. Our unofficial estimate is around about 1.4 million, and that's really just at a staff level conversations around what work has been undertaken previously and what kind of anticipating the sort of work and consents will be required. We firmed up the scope. I thought that was really important, particularly when we're looking at LTP funding, and the whole purpose of this is to build a bridge, improve the rest area, improve the safety, functionality of the space, and we can't have a situation where we blow the budget, the design goes way out of scope, and suddenly we've got a half built or nothing built, and we push the project out to the next LTP or 2 LTPs. So really tightening up that scope to make it crystal clear of what we're trying to achieve. And at this stage it is quite literally the pedestrian bridge, all of the supporting infrastructure underneath, so you're looking at some erosion protection to look after those abutments, or the connecting trails. So it doesn't mean that we're going to form trails everywhere, but making sure that we future-proof that opportunity to say, if we're going to create an underpass on both sides of the stream, making sure that people can still access or utilise that, even in an unformed path state. We're going to incorporate the installation of those cultural features. We're not saying that this will decide what those cultural features are. That's a separate part of the project, but making sure that there is funding to install those features, making sure that the bridge, we don't just want it to be a slab of metal and look ugly, but we understand that once you start to add special designs in it, it could increase the cost. So being strategic in how it actually looks. The delivery, a slight correction on the report there. So we've commissioned BTW company. It says for the full delivery. It's not actually for the full delivery. It's to get us a preliminary design of everything within scope and get us to obtain that resource consent. So it's all of the testing, all of the feasibility, getting us to securing that resource consent in order for us to push forward with the build phase. And they may or may not be commissioned to complete the build phase, but at this stage we've got them on board to get us to that level. The concept plan on page 26, it's not really a concept plan, it's more giving everyone a visual of what feedback has been received to date, and that's from WK, from the ops team, it's from the community board, it's from the other stakeholders. So all of those conversations represented on the page, and as you can see, there's a lot of potential for us to expand, particularly those links both into Te Puke, so west of the bridge area, then all the way through to Waitangi towards the east, and then those connections to this very marae here. But those connections, those outside of the scope of this project, it's really just get the infrastructure at the location and have that ability to add to it at the end. But also part of my update is an opportunity to introduce you to one of my colleagues who we have brought in especially to make sure that this project gets delivered. And it's kind of trying to find that balance of many hands make light work versus too many chefs spoil the broth. But yeah, I think introducing Scott Parker, who will definitely sprinkle a bit of seasoning on this and make sure that it actually is really good. So invite Scott Parker up, and he can have just a little bit of a cordial on our behalf. So Scott Parker, he knows how to, I wouldn't say physically build a bridge, but he knows what it takes to get a bridge built, and he's part of that Ahi Pātiki Athenry crossing project that's getting underway right now. So.
Morena to you all, and Scott Parker, my current role at Western Bay District Council is that favourite word that's bandied about a lot in circles here that we probably need to change the name of it, but it's I'm the cycleways manager. So I'm responsible for all the trails and cycleway shared paths and things throughout the district. We've got a number of those projects on throughout the district, but yeah, I've done a lot of project management work over the years, and been brought in to assist in this one, and just kind of work closely with the consultancy, work closely with Jason and the ops team. And to me, this project is really exciting because this is an opportunity to work on our relationships with one another. Actually, to me, that's actually the biggest important thing here, and so it's quite exciting, actually. So I'm looking forward to getting the ball rolling and working with stakeholder group and seeing what comes of it. And so that's all I'd like to say. And thank you for coming up with the idea of a bridge connecting across the Waiāri. I think it's a fantastic idea. So, cool. And that's me. And
cool.
And I'll catch up to, we've got a hui early this afternoon, haven't we, Jason, with things. Just something I want to touch on too. Jason touched on it around the bridge, the scope of the bridge, which is standalone with the underpass under the highway and those connections right there. But it's also important when we're down there and we're looking at it, because obviously we want our communities to use that bridge and connect to it. So we need to also consider the few metres back from the highway bridge underpass area onto the shoulders of the road so that they're safe, because we're only talking 20 metres or something like that either side of the highway bridge. But it's those little interface areas that we also want to make sure that we get those right for that. But I mean, that's a detail we can talk about this afternoon.
Stay close, you might be some questions.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Sit in the seat. That's why I moved over.
Oh yeah.
And warmed it up for you. Yes, but that's the nuts and bolts of that update. So yeah, happy to take any questions and probably direct them to Scott.
So Mayor James and
Mayor John.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to cut to the chase, I guess, and ask or confirm, get clarification. This project is essentially fully funded now, possibly 30,000 short, but who knows. But essentially fully funded, all ready to go, subject to detailed design, and it looking like progressing fairly soon. Is that your understanding?
Yep. So the scope of work that we've got with BTW, the goal is to obtain resource consent by the end of March next year, and that feels like about the right time frame to achieve that. So there's quite a lot of work to do between now and then in terms of, looking at the feasibility of the bridge, how it needs to be constructed, all that kind of, those sorts of things, and prepare a design suitable to lodge for resource consent. And that's where, when I touched on relationship and working together before, really it's quite a hefty focus on that collectively to work towards that process. And then assuming that that's all good up until by the end of March, then we're getting into the detailed design stage, which is really firming up on the real specific details of how that bridge is built, and everything else that needs to be built. And then we'll probably be looking, if that all goes well, and we've got consents, then we're probably looking at beginning construction in the summer season of the end of 26, so towards the end of next year. So look, sort of from September on of next year. And once, the biggest part of this project is actually not the bridge building itself, it's the planning and design stage. So yeah, once we get the detailed design sort of through the hoops on that and everyone's happy, constructing it is a fairly brief affair in comparison. And it might, I'd hate to second guess that we could have it built by the end of next year, but certainly summertime next year into, over that, into early 27 is kind of what the target is in my mind. Yeah. So does that?
Yeah, Scott's really already answered my question in the last part. It was the actual building that I wanted to know about, because that's what most people don't understand, all those planning processes that have to take time, and so when they actually see this bridge, so that's cool, thank you.
Kia ora. Any further questions? Aye.
Just as a matter of interest, if a cycleway or a footpath is going that side of the road, and rather than use a cross the road on busy traffic, is there an opportunity to have that track under the bridge and to get across the other side?
That's exactly the plan, is to build an underpass under the highway bridge. Yeah, so if you can imagine, because you're probably familiar, like many of us have been down there to have a look, there is quite a bit of room under that road bridge. And so part of this work that the consultancy will be doing is looking at what we need to do to design that underneath to make that a good connection from one side of the other, so that you don't have to walk across the road. It's a really important part of this project, actually.
There's quite a few bridges around like that.
Yeah.
Whereby it could be utilised by going under the bridge rather than dangerously trying to cross the road.
So if you can imagine the new bridge being slightly downstream of the road bridge, and that one end of the Tapuki end of the new bridge will sort of hook into the trail network that's right there near the stop bank, and at the other end, at the Waitangi end of the bridge, that will we imagine that there might be a short trail section, very short, that just takes you up onto the shoulder of the road for then carrying on that way, if that's the way you're going. And then on the other side of the highway, if you can imagine somebody walking down from here, from Makahai, down the highway, you'd still carry on, because there is no formed path, but you'd carry on down the edge of the shoulder of the road, and then at a certain point where the terrain becomes quite steep and there's a bit of a shoulder there, that maybe there's a short section of trail that then is formed to just give you the last few metres, so that you can then go under the road bridge, something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I know that it's still concept planning stage, but I guess my concerns are health and safety, because once it is built, our kids are going to jump off it, and it's shallow there. So at the sections where we're planning to build the bridge, the river's not as deep.
Yeah, I understand, and that's been a consideration for us too, and we're aware of that, and we're going to hopefully twist Regional Council's arm into the Rivers and Drainage team to help with perhaps restoring the Waiāri stream bed to improve the depth along a short section at that point. But that's where we need the ops team to actually assist in that discussion, and whatever the outcomes of that need to look like. It's kind of early days, but I guess if we're thinking out loud, we all want that outcome. We want to shift the jumping and diving off the road bridge, if we can, to something that's more attractive for the young ones. So that is a goal. So as well as the underpass, as well as the bridge, as well as protecting the edges of the stream bank, we've got to think about incorporating the safe access for that. And also the other thing that came up was monitoring as well. So water monitoring. So yeah.
In what form? Sorry.
Well, just making the access for that easy. Yeah.
Not physically taking water samples.
Not physically taking water samples, no.
Awesome. If there are no further questions,
Could I
yes,
make
there sure is.
Well, it's not a question, it's really a comment,
Yep,
if I could,
go for
please. Well, I appreciate the sentiment of trying to create deeper water for people to jump in. I'm really concerned, after events like last night, it's very easy for those to fill up with sediment very quickly, and perhaps not as much so on the Waiāri, given its shorter passage than some other streams, but I'm not so suggesting I think it's wrong, but I just think we should be aware of perhaps ongoing maintenance requirements if that's the outcome that's wanted.
So what we know is that the Rivers and Drainage team from Regional Council do have a work program around the district of sort of monitoring how our streams and things are performing, and recent comments from a member of the team has suggested that they need to do a bit more maintenance down there, which to your concern and thoughts is that, so it's a conversation. I'm not an expert. We need the experts involved in understanding what and how to do that the right way. Because you're right. Like, if you decide that you want to deepen up a section of it, what are the unintended consequences of that, right? If that's an okay thing to do, then how does that affect the stream elsewhere, and all those kinds of questions. So it's just more of a, let's try and progress that and understand what the outcome of that is desired to be, I suppose. And we don't know yet.
Awesome. If there are no further statements, questions or songs, the recommendations here is that the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group receives the report, project update, Waiāri Rest Area Restoration. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Tēnā kōrua, Te Piripi John and Whai Darling. All those in favour? Aye. Ka pai. Motion carried. Last item for today's hui, 9.3, Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group Cultural Recognition Update. Can I please have Calvin Hill, who have we got?
Calvin,
those that
Jen,
need to present, no mic.
Calvin, Jen and Chris.
Morena. I wanted to bring Jennifer Pearson up here because she plays a pivotal part in what goes on, and I'm sure most of the iwi members will recognise her contribution, so it would be good for her to sit up the front and you answer some of the difficult questions. It's quite exciting to be here, and it's a great location. I feel really welcome to this place. The report we promised you last time around, we'd look at changing it around, and that's what we've done. I think one of the comments made was around the conductivity of our councils to act in one rather than to opposing each other and operating in different areas. So this report here covers, and there's 4 recommendations which I'll touch on at the end. Essentially, you've just heard Jason and Scott and Chris go through one of those items around the Waiāri Bridge. But I thought I'd just take you very quickly through the report. Obviously, you've had a chance to read it. It is very much an easier laid out report going forward. It's a template we'll be using to update. There are a lot of blank spots in there, but they'll be filled in the coming months. It's been pleasing, certainly in the last 3 months, we've had a number of meetings with the operational team and have made some really good progress, which is really pleasing. And I suppose it's around various people stepping up to the mark and we're going to try and manage that part. So there'll be a lot more names start to appear in this report. But we've got the bones of the 7 initiatives there, and I thought we'd just run through those. Dean Flavel's here today, and I want Dean to do a little bit of a presentation because one of the recommendations relates to what Dean's going to talk to you about. So just on the funding, just want to refresh people because we talked about it last time around. Obviously, Western Bay have putting a considerable sum of money against the restoration project, as we've heard. TCC have got in so $750,000 investment over this year and the next couple of years. Bay of Plenty Regional Council, we've got in-kind support, but there's opportunity for a number of specific funding related environmental projects where they're offering money on. So things like planting, things like that. So there's some opportunities there for us. Full size. And I think it's fair to say that we have a current budget that will get us through our 7 initiatives for the very short term, but longer term it's going to require more funding. And we've talked about this in the past. There are some opportunities from funding outside of the councils which will be pursued as some of these activities come up. But I just wanted to make that point that obviously there is, for the long haul, there's obviously, this only gets us part of the way. So with our 7 cultural initiatives, one of the key things that has been discussed is the ability to be able to deliver as many items as early as possible. And again, it was made very clear to us as staff that iwi did not want to rank these in any particular order. They're all important. But we've come to the reality that if we wanted to get some runs on the board and get some things completed and underway, then we'd look to change that order. And so the priorities have been set according to a number of key things that are actually underway. And obviously one of those is that Dean will talk about those, but they're all, again, just want to stress, they're all important, but that's how we're going to treat them in terms of how we're funding and moving forward, and that the report will reflect that as we meet each quarter, will reflect that. Again, one of the things we talked about is refreshing this with the report would actually have more substance for our councillors to actually see where the money's being spent, but it also sets some actions in place but gives some time frames around so that it can be monitored and reported on. So that's what's in this report. It is a live document and it will be updated every time we meet, which I think is every 3 months, but essentially there are, again, a number of activities which are still being worked through, still being talked about, and we still need to add more information to the blank components of that sheet. So I thought we'd just run through each of the initiatives, and the very first one, Dean, I wanted to ask if you'd like to come up and talk around the concept plans that you're underway with.
Do you have anything on this report?
I haven't put anything up there. I thought we'd just look at you and you'd sell it on your...
Oh, well, you mean my look at a couple of hui back, the Toi Takapu got invited to the hui. For years we've been looking at how we can create the cultural presence on the awa. And it's good to hear Scott around the bridge, because that's been a toughie for at least 20 years for us. And so to hear that moving forward. But so I think the approach that a little bit about the Toi Takapu. The Toi Takapu local artists from Tapuika. We're a collective of artists, so we're bound to 3. We've got a trust which we've created, but we're not bound to only those 3 artists. So we try to reach out to our wider whānau, whether it's wālanga, whakairu, painting, those sorts of things, and bring them into projects that reflect the iwi, tapu, etc. So the Waiāri is one of those projects. So what we thought we'd do is we'd come together, just have a listen really to where you're thinking, where the thought is here, because we have our own thoughts. But I suppose what we want to do is, as we move forward, we want to move in a way that incorporates all of us. So it's a celebration of the river. Opposed to, it's always been on the other side for us. We've always been on the opposing side of everything. So it's taken a while for us to get on the right side, I suppose, or us side. And so the concepts that we're looking at is looking at po or artworks, not necessarily po, but artworks that kind of go along the length of the awa. We've always kind of been talking about the bridge area. And why I talk about the bridge area is because that there is an area significant to us here at Ngāti Tūheke. That there is the lair of our tani whātami in that area there. Our uncles and aunties on Sunday, they'd go down there and wash their clothes down there. So Horoi the Tākohu, it's a tonga-ika, it's a place where we kneel, all those sorts of things. And so that's why we always talked about that area. It's a summertime getaway, if you like. You go down and camp near the Waiāri and swim there. But when looking and just listening to the hui today around, I suppose, what is ready to move now and what is ready, not ready, so we've looked at that and said, okay, very important part to be that requires cultural recognition and acknowledgement is where the plant currently sits. So the plant sits at Ngai Nui. And in our waiata this morning, Tēnei Te Aroha, there were 2 springs, or puna, that were mentioned in that waiata. Mangakino, which is off the Mangatoi River, that comes out of Otami Wainuku, and the second one is Ngai Nui, where the intake is. So as you come through the gorge there, that is, Ngai Nui is the umbilical cord. And so if you ever go up into that area, these are springs upon springs upon springs that just come in and come up from the river itself up through the sides as well. And they create an umbilical cord of water or life. And so that being where the plant is currently, is, I suppose, the starting point for us. We'd like to be able to acknowledge the importance of that site. Not so much what is happening there, but it will happen. But prior to that building, our karakia was down on the river. So as Hapu and Iwi, we went down because our thought was for our river, not so much for the extraction, but we do appreciate that the extraction of water is going to many people and being shared with a lot of people. So in that fact, I mean, life is water, or water is life. So we adopt that as part of our kōrero. So when looking at which one do we do first, we've thought as an artist group and as Kaitiaki, we'd like to do something there to start off with. My understanding was it was over a period of years. So that would be, for us, the first cab off the rack would be there. Listening to what's happening now with the bridge, that may, and I think you said October 26 or something, or 10/26 next year is when we're in construction. So I think for artists, we would love to be at some point involved with the construction so that we can advise to what we would like to possibly have within that. So, and so if that's the next year's project, then that's next year. We have planting projects, as I understand, from throughout the project. So there's that. And then it's the top area of the awa. So for Tapuika, for the settlement, we got a, what do you call it? Acknowledgement. Statutory acknowledgement on the Waiāri. We originally had a deed of recognition. Yeah. However, the central government at the time told us, oh, a river that has a deed of recognition has to be navigable. You have to be able to take a boat up. And so they said to us, you can't take a boat up the river, so you can't have that. We said, well, you know, opposed to what we think, you can, but however, that's when it then dropped down to the next level of protection, which is that recognition, significance of statutory acknowledgement. That wasn't enough for Tapuika, and so I can remember the negotiation, which I negotiated with Waitaha as well at the time, around, well, for us it's not enough, and so there are 2 islands at the top of this river. Those have been transferred to Tapuika's ownership. as reserves. So that's the other area that's really important. So we're talking 3 po at the moment, 1 up in that area. Now that area, to find that area, you're best to go up to Peranga School. And next to Peranga School, we've put up a bit of a waharo there, which acknowledges partly the bush area in there, but also the school and the relationship that we have with that kura. So that kura says that this is them marae, and we are. So whenever anything happens with Te Ranga, they come down here. So that's that relationship which we've formed with them. But then down from there is where the whenua is. And there was a pā there, Maru would know, because Waitaha acknowledged the pā that was in there as well at one point. So it's an important place. The last time we were there, which is only a couple of, well, last year, the tuna up there are huge. So that was where tuna were taken from. So that's part of the history. The tuna taken from that area isn't only something for Tapuika and Waitaha, but we also used to have our whanaunga rangi wiwihi come through, and they would take from the river called Turuturu. But the Turuturu is another river, but the Turuturu is a section of the Whakauru, and that's the eating spot. And so these relationships have been in my rano forever and ever. These are the relationships we have as iwi and tapu, and it's based on what the river can provide. And so these are the cultural recognitions that we want to put back in place. So we've been talking to our whanaunga, and if we go further up, that relates us back to Ngāti Rangi. And so we have these relationships which I remember when the tech park was going in, Ngāti Rangi Nui, Tapuika Waitaha, Rangi Wiwihi, we were all at the table. We were talking about these things back then. Nothing happened, the park went, but nothing happened that acknowledged that whakapapa relationship that we share. And so, in a strange way, this is an opportunity for us to backtrack, but also to acknowledge those relationships that we have. And then down this end, we have Ngāti Whakaue. And then if we go out, we can acknowledge Ngā Pōtiki as well, and Ngaitarangi. So, you know, it's not so much about, I suppose, just putting cultural things into the landscape. It's around acknowledging these relationships and this whakapapa that we have. But how do we bring it forward so that other people understand it? So it's us trying to educate through our artworks, our written word is our whakairo, those sorts of things. So that's kind of where my thoughts at. We haven't done any designs yet, because when we get to the point, and the point it really sits with this committee here, of whether you agree that we could move forward. And if we do, then that's when we start to talk to our various iwi tapu around the artists. I'll leave the politics to those who do politics, and the artists get together and we think about what is the best way to determine, I suppose, things for the future for our tamariki who are coming through, those sorts of things. I know in that contract there is something that we have to acknowledge with Tapuika. I think it's something like digital things around the monitoring of the river? Is that part of, I can't quite remember. I think we were just talking about different things. And it might be because Tapuika have created a digital monitor, and that might be through some of the money. So, I mean, those are quite easy things to do. I mean, we could use QR codes and that to do a lot of that sort of stuff, but yeah, we'll be thinking around it. Yeah. I think that's what we're trying.
So, when you're talking about access, and obviously the island and the site is at the confluence at Te Rangoa Heniata, that's a difficult site, to reach. Yeah, I'm just concerned about how we're going to get there.
Yeah, it may not, and so I also tacked onto that the tech park, because you could acknowledge it possibly in that area there, and then make reference to it. because you're quite right, it's pretty steep when you're going down there. And I don't think Peter Marks, who's the landowner up there, I don't know if he appreciates smaller groups, but I think he wants people tracking through his farm. But yeah, definitely, these are the sorts of thoughts or aspirations, concepts that we're thinking, but it's around how do we make those things real. That might be a digital presence up the top there.
And just one other question. Is there any work, or will we just be doing storytelling through the Whataroa Gorge?
Good question. I think we need something down the bottom with the bakers and something at the top.
Thank
That's for Dean. Thank you, Dean. I mean, you don't need a PowerPoint to talk. You know, just you yourself listening to you is great. As you say, this is a long journey, and while we've got some sites, there's going to be significantly more areas of interest up there as we work our way forward. I think one of the key things you point out, Darlene, is around access to the land, and that's why we know that that's going to take a bit of time to talk with landowners and work our way through. But I think once those landowners see what's being achieved in some of these areas, that'll drive the process. So yeah, we are kind of looking forward to working with Dean, and which obviously is one of the recommendations from this report. Thank you.
We were already having those kind of preliminary talks. So I was talking to Jeff Buckman the other day up at the top there. So
Yeah, Jeff will be.
Good to have them on site.
The other items we've actually, obviously, you can take as read. I think probably just would like to just say what's happening over the next 3 months, and obviously there's some real focus on some of those cultural initiatives. Hence why you've got a bit of a time frame in there. There will be more regular operational meetings. They seem to be good value in terms of once we're underway is keeping a handle on what's going on and making sure there's no issues or roadblocks in the way. So I think that'll work well. Certainly from Western Bay TC staff, we're coordinating ourselves to provide any support we need for those groups. Conscious our next meeting's not until September, but I'm hoping that there'll be a bit of progress, to report it next time around. Which leads us on to these recommendations that we have for this report. And obviously I'm open to any questions before you approve these.
Yeah, happy to move into questions.
Cultural recognition 7.
It's just in the report there, yeah. So, yeah, no, that's right. So one of the things that was raised was a formal meeting to be held at senior exec level, and I can report back that a meeting had taken place between our group manager of infrastructure, Nick Johansson, and Miriam Tarras, who's the current interim CEO at Western Bay. They had a good discussion, good topics. I was given, and that's what I put in the report back from Nick, that they were Western Bay were looking to source a dedicated project manager to take these cultural initiatives going forward. And that's the only words. In terms of any other information, I can't comment because I don't have anything on that. I'm assuming that as Nick is away for a month, but Nick did send me an email to say that Miriam may be reporting back further on this, so in which case, when Miriam sends that through, that email will come back to us, given Nick's absence. So that's all I can add to that.
Question. So with the reprioritising of the ops, that's what we've got here.
Yeah.
Was that worked on with Mana Whenua?
Yes.
So they're part of the operation team.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't the staff to put these in any order. It was actually 100%. Iwi said this is how we think it should go, and so that's.
So therefore, why is cultural recognition number 7 down? I think it was midway through your table and not at the top.
That's as what the group chose in that order.
I can't have been present because it would have been at the top.
It was at the one I know that we had at the Te Puke Library room. I remember everyone No, everyone had put in, remember we all digitally put in what the top, so that's where that one,
So what we did was we did it on, it was set up so you could actually input into your phone, and it came up on there and gave the scores for each individual person, so no one knew how they were ranking them. Each one was confidential, but it gave an overall score at the top. That's how, and that was the ranking order for them.
Yeah.
That was Elva Conroy set it up for us.
Wrong. So cultural recognition should be at the top, mainly because it speaks to our marae.
Can you push us to where you're talking to?
Cultural recognition 7 is the one that Nick and Miriam are dealing with, as opposed to senior exec meeting with the parents that went to court.
So at the moment, that's the list at the moment as it was agreed in terms of priorities. But Darlene, I take it you're suggesting that needs to move to the top.
Well, I do, in terms of the fact that given our current environment around water and discussions that are underway, that it needs to be discussed at a higher level. So the first recommendation was that a meeting be set with senior exec of both councils and the parents that went to court. And I appreciate that Nick has met with Miriam. Neither of them are here today, and you're delivering a message.
Correct.
But the Waiāri water supply for iwi should be at the top. It should definitely be under tohu Māori storytelling.
It's a decision that this group here can make if you want to change the order.
I'm happy. Helen?
I'm happy to go with the suggestion.
That won't, just as a matter of curiosity, that won't conflict with the other mana whenua that were in the room that did the whole prioritising program? Are they all here? Most of, anyway?
Noel's not here.
Paiana? Yes.
Can I clarify that this is about priority, list of prioritisation. I took this to be, it's not about how important they are, it's about the timing potential. So some of those, it sounds like from what Jane was saying, can be achieved relatively quickly, and we heard the Waiāri Bridge restoration area. There's things progressing quite soon. I don't know the timing possibilities for what you're suggesting, but they potentially sound like a longer conversation that will lead some policy review or something. So I don't know how if we raise it up, does it actually make a change to when things happen?
Well, wouldn't it be an open discussion that we're able to partake in? Like, right now, do Miriam and Marty actually know what we want?
I'd have to catch up with them about that.
Because we're all aware that I raise it as often as I can. I'm concerned with the water, and it's mainly around cultural recognition, looking at benefits for iwi. But if we look at water supply for our marae, and it's like right down the bottom right now because we all played on the phone and ranked the different things the way they did. And it's a long conversation. We've been trying to have it for so long now. It almost feels like, excuse the language, but you don't want to deal with us. You've put it in the hard basket. But in reality, to iwi, it's really important to us. Are you aware of Cultural Recognition 7 as the Mayor?
I am, yes.
Okay.
So there are difficulties with achieving that, and I'd like to understand more exactly what you're requesting, and then we can move that on. I don't think it conflicts with achieving all the other things. It's just what's physically possible within the next, in the short to medium term.
We just hit Chris, and then we'll go by Helen and John.
Tēnā koe te suru whakahaere. I recall Darlene requesting a meeting of the leaders of our respective organisations and tangata whenua around the supply of water to Marae. I don't think anyone's taken on board the responsibility from the couple of times you've raised it now to organise for that. So I guess for me here I'd say that I can do that going out of today. To the point of what comes out of those conversations I guess is an ongoing thing, but the real need and desire that I'm hearing is actually just to get in the room and have that kōrero and then see where that takes us, and that's not happened yet. And then we can clarify the issues that have been discussed between our CEO and Nick and the directions that have come out of that. And we can come back to the next week with a clearer picture of all of those things and the desire that you have to move that kaupapa forward.
I just want to say, you know, in light of the current political climate for Māori at the moment, something like the Waiāri water supply, for us I think Darlene is quite right to push there. I don't think it costs any money for both councils to sit down and actually start taking that seriously. That's not going to cost anything, and you don't have to throw a lot of resources at it. I'm pleased, Chris, that you're going to pick that up and run with that. I think that's excellent. The other thing is too, our people need to see something tangible. Look, I had one of the whānau tell me that something was happening on the Waiāri this week at night, and I figured it was something to do with council. That's actually a good thing. And for our people to see that councils, both councils, are making an effort to actually bring water to our maraes is excellent. They need that, we need that, because they know, remember in their minds, this is their water, council is stealing. So I think that'll go a long way for council in the relationship with our people. So I just want to endorse what Darlene is saying. Kia ora.
Deputy Mayor John and then Matua Maru.
Well, again, Chris has possibly stolen my thunder in terms of comment, but I was going to say, just because the rearrangement of the list, it may look lower on the list, I don't see that it precludes the opportunity for Miriam and Nicholas to progress their conversations, and as Chris has given that undertaking to bring something back to the next meeting, I think that's appropriate.
Kia ora. Matua.
Yeah. I'm just wondering how serious you're constructing the Māori model, because we heard the stories that Dean had brought over, and there's a link between Māori model and those stories. And but how serious to take those stories? Now that you can actually go through university and learn the basis of those stories. And I'll give you an example. On top of the Papamore Hills, there's Pātangata. There's an old queer there, and they're now metaphorical stories. There's an old queer up there, her name is Rangi Whakaokia. There's an old queer on Mawao, her name is Rangi Whakaoma. There's a northeast wind that blows from Matarehua on Motiti Island to Matapaura, down Rotiti way. When those two winds blow together, it causes a cross current, and the sea drops. That's what happened to the Rena. Now these stories are told over and again. How do you tell that storm is going to rise? Because the lakes in Rotorua turns to bubble. All the people that used to come from Rotorua to come catching koura, because the koura used to follow the Ahua Parawa, the tide. So these may sound like fairy tale stories, but there's a relevant of truth behind those stories. Your story, my story, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. So the Māori model has to be a bit more serious than something sort of plucked out of the sky. You have to analyse those fairy tales, if you like. Like if a little kid talks about Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder where you are. A Māori point of view would be a song singing about Mere Tuahiahi. Mere Tuahiahi is the evening star. Twinkle, twinkle, how you are. So there's a relevant amount of truth in these poetic stories. And that's what the Māori is for, to find out those truth. Your story, my story, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. And you can use scientists, even scientists, to do that, to work out these stories. So I'm just saying it, take Māori model a bit more serious.
Absolutely. I think it's of real interest to us, particularly as we progress these conversations around the CCOs. TCC's made its position clear on some of our preferred partners, and obviously one of those being Western Bay of Plenty. Here is a working model of where the two councils and mana whenua as well work together. Yeah. And if we can champion the Māori model as these conversations around the CCO develop, then across the moana, when it comes to the oranga o tō tātou wai, ngā tāngata, then that'll definitely put us in really good stead. So I hear your point. Kia ora. Any further questions, comments?
I was going to move recommendations A to D, but also add a fifth one, E, which requests staff progress and facilitate discussion on Waiāri water supply to iwi.
Sure.
Just repeat that again.
Request staff progress and facilitate discussion on Waiāri water supply to iwi.
Staff or...
Well, I was just trying to say Chris Neeper without saying
Chris Neeper.
There is in the minutes already a very succinct, clear instruction around what Darlene had requested. So it's sitting in the minutes there, and it included all parties already. So it's sitting there.
The part we need to consider, sorry through you Mr Chair, is the bottom part of the short-term action where I assume that you are the new project manager. No.
Hold on, sorry. Park that. Keen to have that conversation. Can we, because we've just had a motion put forward, do we have a second? Are you comfortable with bringing E into the conversation before we move forward with closing out the whole thing? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I'm conscious. I hear what you said about in the minutes already. I'm just trying to give some comfort to Darlene as co-chair that this is being progressed. I don't think it crosses over what's in the minutes already, but it just reinforces. Really.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that and bring it into the overall recommendation.
So just to the question that co-chair raised about who the project manager is going to be, I guess the part of that conversation is to understand where that was coming from and what the intention was with that, and then who they had in mind for that, and that can come back to the next meeting. Sorry, Miriam and Nick, who had that conversation about this needing to be project managed going forward. Okay. I didn't know that conversation.
Is that currently Jennifer basically project manages all of the cultural recognition program with Calvin and yourself and Peter. So yeah, I think really just looking at, I think also what we have overlooked is that, and I thank you Chris, because with your involvement that means that your team is, but concerned that our Takawainga team down the back, they should be somewhere involved in this as well, strategically. And they're sitting really quiet down there, like ladies as a tickle with very little to say. Thank you for coming though, Stacey and Kieran. But yeah, I think somewhere in this whole conversation the Pautakawainga team needs to be there.
Just the first step, sure.
Any further? So we've got The recommendations there, as well as an additional E, waiting for it to come up here, as well as an additional E being request staff progress and facilitate discussions on Waiāri water supply to iwi and marae, and that's just providing. And
It's marae.
To marae.
The original recommendation was for marae, not iwi, marae.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think these are something that discussion will clarify. I don't want to set it in stone at this point when I'm making this resolution, but it's all part of the conversation.
Do you touch it? So we've second, first, and last.
You first. He moved it.
Moved it, seconded.
You just
Right. So do I need to read through the whole motion, or are we pretty clear with what's been included and what's been said? Any further comments before we move to pass the motion? Okay. All those in favour?
What does it read?
So the whole thing is that the Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group A receives the report Waiāri Kaitiaki Advisory Group Cultural Recognition Update June 2025. B accepts the revised priority list for Waiāri cultural recognition actions. C agrees to appoint Toi Takapu to develop the cultural recognition artworks. D endorses Western Bay of Plenty District Council plan for the Waiāri Bridge and area improvements. E requests staff progress and facilitate discussions on Waiāri water supply to iwi/marae.
No, the original recommendation is to marae. There was no iwi in there.
Okay.
Because it opened it up for the different PSGEs to say, what about all our registered members?
It's easy. Yeah, happy to move. Yep. Yep, so we've removed iwi and we've just got marae left here. Kapai. All those in favour?
No.
Kapai. Motion carried. That brings us to the end. Thank you, staff.
Yes. I can't hear you. Alva.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
one final word. So, some of you, or most of you, are aware that my role's been disestablished at TCC, so my role concludes at the end of this month. So it's quite sad for me to be sitting here, although it's fantastic to have it in this location. I do wish everybody the best. It's over the last 4 years we've seen some significant movement in this particular project. There's been lots of discussions, but there's some really neat people involved in it who are quite passionate and will drive this process through. So it's probably not a goodbye from me. I'm sure I'll be in the water industry somewhere, but I'll keep a watching brief on it. But I just want to thank, I've built some really neat relationships with people. I'm really looking forward to seeing some outcomes from this. So, yeah, it was just a bit of a farewell from me anyway. So, thank you. All right.
Yeah. Well, just on behalf of at least our group and our collective here, a really massive thank you to you and all your hard work and effort, Calvin, if it was the last 4 years. And my small dealings with you, although small, they've been really great, and it's provided me with a great insight into who you are as a person. And you've been able to bring your authentic self into the work that you do, which is actually translated into really quality outcomes, which at the end of the day is the biggest thing, because we might not have rubber on the road or whatever, but the relationships will be enduring and will forever lead to opportunities in the future. So really sad to hear that you're leaving, actually, but hopefully we will keep you connected in some way. There was a whisper in my ear that there's a project manager role potentially up for grabs, so I mean, no promises, but it kind of makes sense with how well involved you are in this role and how supportive and comfortable mana whenua are with you, that there's some synergies there. So all the best for the future, and I do hope that we continue to see you in this space, and thanks again. I don't know if mana whenua want to say anything. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but certainly from council, it sucks to see you leave.
Yep.
And I really do hope all the best for you and your whānau. Did you want to say anything, Fran? Carl?
Calvin already knows.
Calvin already knows.
I'll leave you in good hands. Jen's going to
Yeah.
carry on from our side, and say Jen's done a lot of work under the scenes on this, so got accepted and is very passionate like me around this. So
Oh, you're the man, Kelvin, thank you. So that brings us to the end of our hui for today. Like a pōhiri, mana whenua start kōrero and they finish it, so I think it's only appropriate that we hand over the closing kōrero and karakia whakamitunga to our mana whenua to close off our hui, not looking at anyone in particular. Kia ora, bro.
Tēnā tātou, tēnā koe tika i maru.
Kia ora.
Mai mea kore me neke. Koe no e tō wai ngā mihi ki runga ki a koe Kelvin. Me ngā mahi nui, ngā mahi roa, i tutuki a koe, no i tēnei tūrurei, tēnei tūranga. I also got a whisper in my ear that you got the second bomb off our new bridge, following Ray Ray. Hopefully there'll still be some water left up there. Kia ora noi mihi nui ana kia tātou, tēnā tātou ko whai mai nei. Me ngā whiriwhiri kōrero, ko tutuki a tātou i tēnei wāna. Nō reira, kia ora mai rā, ka whakakapia ki kōnei, so that we can quickly run over and have a meet. Kia ora mai rā tātou. Moia e, moia e, moia e. Moia e te tupua, moia e te tawito, moia e te kāwhio ngāriki, moia e tāwhipi atu ki ngā atu. O iri ka tā kina te mauri ko te mauri, a hua no mai ki runga ki wēnei, taura ki runga ki wēnei, taura ki tau te mauri. Ki runga ki te Waiāri hoi rere aku nei. Whāno hara mai, tū mai, te toki raka hauri e, hui e, tāi e. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe. And our meeting is closed at 12:26.
Thanks.
What do you want to do there, Fly?